exploring how one Irish university is using Google Hangouts to deliver content to their students and prospective students. Welcome to the Visual Content Marketing Show. I'm your host, Krishna Day, and here on the Visual Content Marketing Show, we explore how to integrate visual content into your digital marketing and communications plans, including covering tips around trends, technology, and really practical advice. So I'm delighted that you're here with me for today's episode, and particularly in terms of the fact that this is the first time I've actually had an Irish guest on the Visual Content Marketing Show. Now, I've interviewed lots of people here in Ireland over webinars and podcasts and so on over the years, but this really caught my attention in terms of a university that's actually just a stone's throw away from where I am in Dublin. We're actually using Google Hangouts, and we'll get a little bit more about what they're doing in just a moment. But if you've joined me in previous episodes, you'll know that we've explored using Google Hangouts in a variety of sectors. So today it's all about how organizations in the education sector can start to look at these as well. And so I've been documenting over the last year or so. In fact, some of the documentation of how people are using Hangouts goes back to 2012, but more considerate in terms of the kind of really over the last year about how organizations have been using them. And there have been a number of notable Irish examples which I've talked about. So we've had banks, we've had music colleges use them. We've actually seen a TV show recently, and it was the Entrepreneur of the Year award here in Ireland recently, and they were using Hangouts, which was really interesting, after a live show. So it was a great way for them to actually bring interviews and conversations with other people who were finalists for the Entrepreneur of the Year award, and it was actually promoted on the TV show. So it's really interesting in terms of organizations starting to look at it. Yes, we've also seen Jedward on Google Hangouts as well. So Bord Gáis, one of our utilities providers here in Ireland, they actually had something that took place back in about, I think it was 2012, 2013, where they invited people to participate and have a conversation with that Irish twin group of Jedward. And we've also seen politicians use it. So for the Irish presidential elections, we actually saw an event taking place that had all of the presidential candidates join in a Google Hangout, which was broadcast from the Google offices. So many, many different organizations starting to use it. But as I said, I was really interested from an education perspective that in fact a university here in Ireland is using them really extensively, and this is specifically around Google Hangouts On Air. Because one of the things I've got to realize is that not everybody tells you that they're using Hangouts. I was with an organization just this last week, and they were actually using Hangouts for conversations between people, but they don't promote that they're using it. It's a way that they actually keep connected. So perhaps Hangouts are being used a lot behind the scenes, but not so much in terms of the way that we're doing it today, where it's being live broadcast. So I'd just like to remind you, if you are joining us today, you are very much invited around leaving comments, and we'll actually be able to pick up those comments and we'll actually cover those, as many as we can, during the live event. If I can't cover everything today in the live show, I'll come back to you. But I should also just go on to say that today is also a public holiday here in Ireland. But the Visual Content Marketing Show keeps broadcasting even on a public holiday, and that's why I'm particularly thankful for our guest. Her name is Marian O'Connor, and she's the Graduate Education Project Officer at University College Dublin. University College Dublin is one of Europe's leading universities, very much research intensive, really great connections in terms of with industry as well. And they've got a graduate community of approaching 8,000 people, which is quite a lot in an Irish context. So Marian, thanks so much for joining us, and perhaps you can start off by telling us a little bit about your department and also the scale of the university and what you're involved in.
Great. Thank you very much, Krishna, for inviting me along today. Yes, as you said, University College Dublin is a very large university. We're very much research driven. We have close on 32,000 students at UCD. and about 8,000 of those are graduate students, and we'd have about 1,500 that are on the structured PhDs. So in terms of the department itself, it's a very small department. We're very much working with other units. So we would have the university itself is structured so that we have 7 colleges. And our office would work very closely with those colleges. Primarily this office deals with broad recruitment activities, content and content on web and on other digital platforms, as well as print publications. We also do domestic and support international recruitment. We also are engaged in activities for conversion and for students that are coming into the university around creating awareness as to what they need to do, orientation sessions, that kind of thing. So really a broad spectrum of activity from scholarship programs to working with government organizations. So really a broad spectrum of activities.
So when I was looking at your Google Plus page, and I know there's several Google Plus pages for the university, I noticed you've been actually hosting Hangouts for some time. So perhaps you can start by telling us what encouraged you to start to use Hangouts. And I know that you were using them back in 2013, if I remember looking at your page. And maybe there were things you were doing privately before that.
Yes, we were looking at what really drove it, I think, was we were looking at how students research programs and what kind of information they were looking for, and we did a number of focus groups across the university, across all of the colleges, and a couple of things became apparent. One was that students wanted to engage with the academics on the programs and get more information and ask questions, and the other was the requirement to contact the students and being put in touch with the students. So that really kind of was the driver, and I was trying to figure out, well, how am I going to achieve that? So that really was, I suppose, what kind of prompted me to look at Google Hangouts. I had heard of them, but I had never used them. So the first kind of activity I did myself was just a hangout, which I didn't really promote to anybody. I just started by doing a presentation and putting it online just to see how the process would work. So that kind of was the first the first activity that I did, and then moving on from that, then getting a hangout that would support a specific program. We would support a lot of graduate taught programs, so I wanted to promote a specific program, and I was doing an online campaign with Google AdWords and Facebook, so I wanted to integrate that hangout into the landing page for the program. So that's really how I started, I suppose, and what the driver was for choosing Google.
So I know a thing that we often come across in organizations in terms of that early stage is resistance from the organization. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture and what you had to do in terms of getting approval? Or perhaps it wasn't a problem for you, but I know that some people here will be watching and saying, yeah, it's great to try these new things, but actually our organization isn't open to it.
Well, I think UCD is very open to it, and certainly it wasn't really a problem to get approval. We have the suite of Google products, from email to Google Drive, etc. So we have a suite of products already. So it was just a matter then of going to IT and asking them, you know, could I extend it out to Google Hangouts, and could I have access to that? So it was made available to me, I suppose, on a trial basis, and then the individuals that I wanted to bring on the Hangout, that was made available to them also. So it was kind of on a trial basis, and I think it's now available across to all staff and students within UCD. So.
That's great, Marian. I mean, kind of explain in terms of, is that Google for Education? Is that the full suite that you're using, or are you using the free resources available from Google?
The free resources now, I'm not sure exactly what those resources are called, but we would have, Google Drive, we'd have our email is Google, so there's a lot of products that you can use, and I'm not sure what other departments have access to. I know personally I have access to the email and the Drive as does everybody else. So I think probably the same way that I got access initially on a trial basis for the Hangouts, I think other departments are probably accessing other services from Google, but I'm not sure exactly what those are.
So let's go to the stage where you've done that first event, and I really like the fact that you were integrating Google Hangouts into the rest of your communications, and that idea where you put it onto a landing page, because I know that very often people do not think about how do I integrate this into other things. So as an example for this event, some people might be watching this from one of my websites, and some people, if I wanted to, I could have embedded this on Facebook, or I could have embedded it elsewhere. We have to think about where do we want to bring people to. I do appreciate the fact that some people here watching live and commenting, so it's great to see them here on the Google event page. So there's multiple ways that people can comment, and maybe some people are going to watch on YouTube. So that makes it really interesting in terms of actually the different ways you can bring people together. But beyond that first event, how have you gone on and identified the content? So it's interesting to hear about that research, but I know that you have such a variety of things that you do. How do you determine what the right priorities are, when a Hangout is right for your communications, and actually what the content structure would be for that?
Yeah, well, I suppose for the most recent suite of Hangouts that I did was when students were coming in for orientation, and I got in touch with the UCD Students' Union and asked them if they could do some research with current students, asking them exactly what they needed in terms of a Hangout. And they selected an international Hangout, a careers Hangout, a Hangout with our student desk and our student union and our student societies. And so that really was, they were the drivers of the content. So I suppose in terms of program information, I have done some research with students around the Hangouts, and I have determined that while some of them are very much interested in what the academic is saying, what the program information is, a lot of the students like to see how the student interaction is taking place. And some of the students said that they didn't quite use the Hangout in terms of the purchase decision. They used it after that they'd been offered a place, and that they were looking at it from a perspective of, well, will they come? They've been offered a place, but just to get more information and to be sure that they're making the right decision. It's a big commitment to take on a graduate program. It can be, in terms of a tall program, it could be 1 or 2 years. In terms of research, it can be anywhere between 3 and 6 years. So, it is a big time commitment, and it's also a financial commitment. So it's important for us to provide a lot of information for the student and to help them to make that decision. So that's really what we're doing. I also looked at the analytics within our YouTube account, and that's very useful for anyone that is thinking of doing a Hangout, in that they can go in and they can see exactly the engagement with the content. And from the program perspective, you can see probably around the 60% of the content has been viewed, whereas it's less on the orientation Hangouts. So I think that's very much showing that how engaged the student is and how much they need to see that information. So I think that's really important to go back in and look at your analytics and see where your audience are coming from, and what content they're engaging with, and are they looking at it, all of it, or are they looking at just some of it? How much of it are they actually looking at? So I think that's really important.
And I'm guessing you also have quite a lot of students that come to the college from overseas. So back to your comment around it being a big commitment, it's actually going to be a physical commitment in terms of them moving, not just in Ireland or kind of local, let's say, from the UK, but actually it could be a much more significant commitment. So Hangouts, it seems, are going to have an impact in terms of that, which brings me on to a question around, have you considered doing Hangouts actually at different locations? So I know, when having looked at yours, they seem to be from an office versus it being, let's say, at different places on campus, or to show the other resources. Are you relying on video or other content to do that?
At the moment we are, but the international office, I have been working with the international office quite a bit, and the Hangouts that the international office are engaged in would be around agent training. So they use the Hangouts to train agents in the market on our programs and the university. They're also using them for sessions in advance of students coming here. So students that would have an offer and are intending to travel, so there would be a session for them on basically everything they need to know before they arrive, the orientation that's going to take place, the visas that they need, etc. So there's a session with them. So there's various things going on within the international office as well that is supporting the international student. And I suppose Google Plus is very popular in markets like India, Malaysia, Indonesia, and often when we do Hangouts we find that the audience is often quite of an international base. And while I think the benefit of Hangouts, some people would determine that the Hangout itself is based on the number of people that are actually watching at the time of the Hangout. But really I think the benefit is when you get the content and it's then uploaded onto YouTube. YouTube is one of the largest engines there is, a search engine, so that really brings your content to the fore, so that's really important. It's also in embedding it into your program pages. When you embed it into your program page, you have the benefit of adding to your search engine performance, but you also have the situation where you can really deliver a lot of content in a very small space, and I think that's going to be really important for us as a university. We're going to have to bring a lot of content onto smaller devices, and in order to do that we're going to have more video, and I think that will be really important, that we're bringing on more Hangouts and video into our platforms.
That's really great insights that you've shared with us. So if you've just joined us, you're welcome here to the Visual Content Marketing Show. My name's Krishna Day, and I'm in conversation today with Marian O'Connor, who's the Graduate Education Project Officer at University College Dublin. If you do have questions, please feel free to add them to the comment stream. I know there's a lot of conversations that are taking place at the minute in terms of some technical aspects, so I think there's a lot of good information being shared between people who are watching the event here. So let's take a step forward in terms of looking at that Hangout that you might be doing. I think it's really interesting, as you said, about, and I find the same, that for me it's the views afterwards, not always in terms of the live event, and the fact that providing everything works well and smoothly, which sometimes it doesn't, and of course we're using a free service here, providing everything works well, we've got immediately the archive of that content. But one of the things, and I appreciate the fact that you helped promote this, so you shared this event, and it's, I know that you were over on LinkedIn, and we've been in conversation there, so we've used a number of different platforms to share about this event. What are the things that you do? And I'm particularly interested because in many cases you're dealing with a millennial audience, and that might be different from what some of the audiences that might be coming into other people's organizations and other programs. So what have you noticed is actually working for you in terms of the the ways that you share the content and promote it?
Well, in terms of content that is going to be for students that are coming in, so like orientation content, we have an email address that is dedicated for students. So all students are required to use a specific email address. So we would have those email addresses so we can contact those students that are coming in and email them about the Hangout specifically. So that's one way. And then for content that is for potential students that we have no information for, we would have a number of social media platforms, and each of the colleges would have they focus on different mediums. So some will be using Twitter quite extensively, some are using Facebook, Instagram. So basically what I would do when I have an event, I would create a suite of snippets for Twitter, and I would give them a bit.ly URL, and I basically create the wording that I want to go and the image that I want to be placed, and I would email that out then to the various contacts across the college and ask them to share, retweet. They have very large audiences, within the colleges, so it's really, I would push it out to them, and they would then put it out into their various platforms. So that's kind of on the social media platform side. Then for campaigns, as I said, I would integrate those into the landing page. I did try and use an event page as a landing page on the actual on the Google AdWords, but it doesn't actually facilitate that. So you actually have to use a specific URL for your landing page and then embed your video into the page, rather than actually using the event page as the landing page for your ad. So I think that might be changing, but I'm not sure if it has changed yet. I don't think it has.
Yes, in fact, one of the things that changed earlier on this year is if you have more than 1,000 people who are actually following your Google Plus page, so you can actually use Plus Post ads, taking rich media content from your Hangout into the Google AdWords products. And there's a number of organizations who've been doing that, typically large organizations that we've actually seen. For example, the Toyota Collaborator app, they used it as part of that campaign. In Europe, we saw Cadbury's use it as part of their Easter egg, their Cadbury's Cream Egg campaign. So a number of large organizations have been doing that, but we need to make sure we've got over 1,000 people to explore that. And if anybody's interested in that topic, it actually is a topic that we covered earlier on this year in terms of a conversation with an organization here in Europe who'd been experimenting with them. So I'll make sure I put a link to that in the notes on the event page later on. One of the things that I'm interested in terms of, you were talking about, you were looking at your analytics on YouTube. How do you define success? What does success look like for you, particularly as you're bringing lots of different people into the Hangout and different topics? And I'm sure there's people who come on who have been guests may have a degree of kind of anxiety, nerves even, about being live on camera and live streaming in real time. So it's not going to be you're not going to go back and necessarily edit it. I'm interested in terms of, what have you perhaps had to do with those people, but actually how do you talk to them about success from their appearance in a Hangout?
Yeah, well, I suppose, the academics on the programs, they are obviously very busy. They have teaching, and they have, they're correcting and doing research. So it's a very busy time for them when you want to recruit as well. So I really kind of try and promote it that I am giving students the opportunity to meet with them on a very large scale. And I think that's really important that that is facilitated. And I know I have had very little resistance from people to come on. I think, in actual fact, because they are lecturers, they're very good communicators. So they really have no problem getting their message across. Initially, it is a little bit it's a little bit difficult trying to explain, you know, what it is, but I really just kind of go over, sit with them and show them the interface. And I think once you show the interface and then you do a test run, I think that's really important. Once they've got the test run done, then they're quite comfortable then. Now, the students, I haven't found that they have had any problems. They have no problems with the technology. It's just, I just send them the link, and there's very little questions, and they can sort it out themselves. I think that's it's just the age of the students. They have just no issues at all. They're straight in, and it's no problem. So if your audience members are students and academics, then I don't think there is any real issues. Now, I did have one person that didn't want to come on because they didn't want to leave a social footprint, I guess. But that was their personal preference. But other than that, everybody's been very supportive and really thinks it's a good initiative.
I think that's really interesting that you say that you go alongside and are with them, because whilst you've got a large campus, actually people are typically here relatively nearby. Mm-hmm. I know some of us actually do kind of orientation for people who we've never physically met mm-hmm. in the real world. But I really like that fact that you actually can go along and sit next to them. And also, I like that idea of saying to them, this is where you can reach people at scale. It's actually a productivity tool. It's a really interesting insight about the way that you've approached it. Marian, I'd love to ask you about, you were saying about people joining you in terms of in the Hangouts as students. Have you done it where they actually come in and they participate and they're in a live conversation, or has it been mainly about the broadcast and of the content and then answering questions as they come in, either from your own web page or from other platforms where people are asking questions?
Have we taken questions, do you mean? Is that, sorry, just to clarify?
Yeah, have you had them in the film strip? So like we're here live, we could actually have had a couple of students in live joining us here now, or have they mainly been in a situation where they've been watching it?
No, I've had a panel with students. I also did a session with an orientation session with the student societies this year. One of the issues, I suppose, that student societies, or not necessarily issues, but at graduate level, students have been through the university system. And then, you know, they mightn't be as eager as undergraduates to join student societies, but student societies engagement is very important and getting involved, and we wanted to promote that. So what we did was we got a number of the societies together. So I think we had maybe 6 or 7 different students from different societies on talking about their particular society, how you could join, what the benefits were. So yeah, so I've had students on from that perspective. I've also had them on the product hangouts, so on the actual taught programs, talking about their experience of the program, talking about the workload of the program, and really I had three students on talking about their experience, and they were from, you know, the Canada and the US. So really a broad mix of people talking about different things. So yeah, it's been really great. But I did have a couple of issues in terms of a couple of the students on the Societies Hangout weren't back on campus, so they were in different locations with different broadband access. So I had a couple of technical difficulties with that, but it did work out in the end, and we did get a good few viewing, and we got a lot of views afterwards. So I think that was really very positive.
So I know we've got some questions, Marian, for you around if people want to watch the events after. I've come across them on Google+, but perhaps what you can do is just let me know, or you might want to post yourself in terms of if there's different places that are a good place for them to see the some of the examples that you've just been talking about, because obviously they've been embedded on your website, and they may be on different departments, it sounds like, because of the variety of parts of the organisation who are doing it. So that would be great if you could perhaps share 1 or 2 examples with people of the kind of things that you've been talking about.
Mhm.
So I would really love to know, in terms of, as you kind of go back over the last year or so of your experience of using Google Hangouts,
Mhm.
what's the top 2 or 3 learnings that you've had that actually, is going to inform you for 2015, and also as you are working alongside different departments, perhaps starting to see them use it, as you've talked about, or you've got a personal goal or a departmental goal to actually encourage the use of that, particularly when you were talking about the fact of finding ways to deliver rich content in smaller spaces as people are looking on their mobile device.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things, I suppose, if you are planning Hangouts, I think really key is to ensure you test. You really need to test the Hangout before you go live, and you need to make sure that all the participants have the required the machine capability, and that they have video cams and the basics. Just be sure that you test, and if the participants don't have, if they're not on that particular machine that they're going to be using at the time, do the test again. And I can't really stress that enough. So that would be one of the learnings, I think. In terms of the content itself, I think it's really important to have a panel of people as well. I think it really breaks up the content, and people, I noticed from the research that we did after the event, that different students wanted different things. Some wanted content on this program specifically, so if you are doing program related Hangouts, then some weren't interested in the student activity. They were only interested in the program content. And then other students really liked the interaction, and being able to see the interaction with students and get the feel from the students as to what the program was like. So I think if you've got a mixture, then you're kind of catering to a broader audience. If you want, you can always edit that content down afterwards on your YouTube channel, and you can slice it up, or you can put in timestamps to that specific content. But I think my looking really at the analytics and getting the feedback from the students, it's difficult to say exactly what they want. So you have to, I think, provide a variety of content that will appeal to the audience. So that's one thing. And then I think it's just a really good way of giving students a feel for the program. Students, some of our research showed that while students like to see testimonials, they often don't put a lot of emphasis on those testimonials. They think that, that they might have been contrived, or, but when it's in a live environment and they can actually see and judge for themselves the interaction, I think that's really important. So I think in terms of analytics, I think it's really important to keep an eye on your analytics, see what people are using, and deliver the content that they want. I don't think it's really important as to the number of people that you have on the Hangout at the time. I know from looking at the one I did last year, I think I've had over 1,000 views, and I've had 60% of that content viewed on the program itself. So I think that just shows how engaged students are with the content. And it's not only for sales, but it's actually for conversions as well. So I think it has benefits both prior to sale and afterwards.
I know that universities generally have been very much adopting digital tools such as iTunes University, and I actually haven't checked out if you've got a lot of content there, but I know there's another major university that's got a huge amount of video content and iTunes University content that's been available. One of the questions that we've got for you, Marian, is around actually moving it to where iTunes U has obviously gone to in many cases, where there's been instruction and there's been education and there's been, information that's being shared by many universities across the world. Some of that's video content today. Have you started to see departments use Hangouts on Air either privately or semi-privately or publicly around delivering content, or even, in fact, the part of the question there is even using it for collaboration for the research that's being undertaken?
Yeah, I think our teaching and learning unit has begun to explore that, and are in a process of, I think, demonstrating to the academic community how that could be used, how Google Hangouts can be used as a teaching platform. And that's certainly something that they are doing. Now, I wouldn't have the specifics on that, but yes, I've seen that they are in their internal communications starting to focus in on Hangouts on Air as a tool for collaboration. In terms of whether or not it can be used for research purposes and collaboration there, I don't know, because often the research is going to be sensitive, and that's an area I think that would have to be explored very carefully, just to make sure that that anything that is shared can be released, and if it was released to the public, we'd have to make sure that that's correct before we do that. I mean,
absolutely, because there's quite a lot of competition around that research that's being done as well, and particularly there's a lot of work that's being done at UCD that's really on the leading edge in terms of, certainly that's my knowledge and what I've experienced from the college so far. There's a great comment here around the fact that testimonials are like ads versus the fact that Hangouts are so much more real. And you mentioned about testimonials not necessarily being accepted by people in education, in terms of particularly with students. In your case, I think my experience, Marian, actually that's the world over. I think there are some people that actually believe in testimonials and they're very powerful, but equally there's some people who actually don't believe or trust them. So, but a real conversation with somebody makes a huge difference. As we're wrapping up, in terms of today, I got another question here. Somebody saying that they're really interested in terms of content that's delivered to smaller groups at a time via the film strips. So do you do most of the events that you're doing to public events, or are you doing any of the Hangouts on Air to either semi-private or private groups at this point in time?
Yeah, well, the international office would be promoting events to agent groups, so a particular group of agents that have offices, in a particular country. So they are using events to actually take those staff in various regional offices through, I suppose, the range of products that we have. We would have a very broad range of graduate programs. So it would be basically a training session on the various programs and how to apply and all of those things that an agent needs to know in order to promote our programs in that market. So that's kind of what they would be doing.
There's so many things that you've shared today where, whilst you're in education, I think there's so many learnings that we can take in terms of if we're working with other kinds of organizations, from profits to non-profits. And a few things that have struck home for me was the fact of actually email being a really powerful way that you actually brought people's attention, be it the students, to your Hangouts on Air that you've done, and that's actually brought people to you. The fact that you've integrated Google Hangouts into your landing pages, and actually it's a way that you describe it, being able to deliver a lot of great content in a small space, which is obviously important in terms of digital devices, in terms of mobile devices being used. The fact that you spent a lot of time, a lot of reiteration about the importance of looking at your YouTube analytics and using that. And the other thing that's also struck me, I mean, there's so many things, Marian, that you've been very gracious in terms of sharing with us, but also the fact that you've done quite a lot of research. So you've collaborated with other departments to find out what's the topics and how should we construct that and who are the right people to have there. If I was to look to the future, what might we be thinking about, or what are you thinking about, I should say, in terms of, if you look forward to 2015, in terms of using this last year as a year of experimentation, as you were describing it, and learning? What are some of the things that you're planning to anticipate to explore in the year ahead? And of course, we're not asking you to share any trade secrets.
Well, I think what I'd like to see is more content to be developed on program content for Hangouts on Air, and I think we have our next Hangout on Air is coming up, I think, on the 24th of November. Our cybercrime digital investigation graduate taught masters for cybercrime is holding a Hangout on Air for potential students. So I think what I would be pushing for is all of our colleges have marketing people. So what I would hope is that they will see the benefit of using Hangouts and use them across the university. So I think that would be really great if we could get more engagement on that. We are seeing, certainly our School of Law and our computer science have started already, so I think, and our international office is using it extensively as well, and I think our engineering is also thinking of it. So I would see that we will have more content on Hangouts on Air very soon.
You know, I'm really proud of the fact that I'm here in Ireland, and this great work is going on with a university that's just, as I said before, very, very close to me. In fact, I've used your facilities before. My family have used the facilities, amazing facilities. I know my eldest daughter is at secondary school, and she uses your debating theatre. I would encourage people to go and have a look at the UCD campus, and we'll get to how you can go and find out about that a little later. But I'm so proud of the fact that you are my first person I've got in terms of as a case study here, and it's from the education sector in an Irish context, and I'm thrilled, Marian. And those of you who weren't with us at the beginning of the show may not realise that today is a public holiday in Ireland, so I'm particularly grateful that Marian's taken some time away from her family today, has gone into the university, and is joining us here. You know, as we wrap up, Marian, if there was maybe something that you can share with people about the best way that they can get in contact with you a little more, because some people I know might be watching this later and might be saying, oh gosh, that looks like a place that somebody I know, or even myself, would like to experiment and explore in terms of the kind of programs that are going on there. So what's the best way for people to learn more about the broader work that goes on at UCD?
Well, the Graduate Studies website is ucd.ie/graduate studies. We have a course search on there, so if you are interested in any of our graduate programs, please do check that out. We would have, you know, in excess of 400 programs and over 1,000 options. So please do check out UCD Graduate Studies. You can also, if you have any questions or want to get in touch, please do. I'm on LinkedIn, and you know, just drop me a mail and you can get in touch with me. Also, UCD.ie, we have a Facebook page also, so I monitor information coming in on that, so you can certainly get in touch with me via Facebook as well if that's your preferred platform. So thank you very much, Krishna. I'm really very pleased to have been your guest today, and I do hope that was of benefit.
I'm absolutely thrilled, Marian, that you were able to join us here, and you know, you've given your time very, you know, kind of freely gifted your time, lots of great insights that you've shared. I do hope that if anybody's watching this and they know people who are in the education sector, that they'll actually share this, and perhaps actually if you're finding there's other great case studies out there, we'd love to know, and Marian's given you lots of ways that you can get in contact with her. Those of you who've joined me before will know that I always encourage you at the end of any time with me to actually consider how you might adopt one thing that we've covered today, apply it to your organization. Maybe you can adapt something. Maybe it's reminded you of something. And I know that it certainly has been really interesting for me to hear what Marian's been doing. I'm sure it has been for some of you as well. So I just really encourage you to think about, if you've invested the last 45 minutes with us, is there one thing that you might go away and actually is going to help you think about how you approach Hangouts on Air in terms of in your organization? Both Marian and I would love to know. That's one of the things that really drives me forward, is if I find that actually somebody said that was helpful. So please do come back. Let Marian know. Contact her directly. Just say, remind her how you came across her. But of course, you can come back and leave comments on the event page or on YouTube, or if you're watching this on my website, leave comments there. I know we'd love to know what you take away from it. If you do have questions around digital communications and specifically Hangouts on Air, you can actually look to meet with me. And I host Google Hangouts. You'll find me at helpoutsformarketing.com. So feel free to go over there. And of course, you can find me on many, many different social networks as well. And you'll find me on LinkedIn, as Marian said. But if you want to have a face-to-face conversation with me, the easiest way that you can do so these days is actually over at Help Outs for Marketing, and you'll find a schedule of mine where I'm available. And if you don't find a time that's available there that you need, then by all means, just send me a message. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Visual Content Marketing Show. I really appreciate the fact that you've invested your time with us, and I look forward to actually bringing you other guests in the future. If you've got ideas for the kind of content that you'd like to have shared with you in terms of guests that you'd like to see on the show in the year ahead, do please let me know. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you specifically to Marian O'Connor, Graduate Education Project Officer at University College Dublin. I'm thrilled that today we were able to bring you a case study from here in Ireland. Thanks, everybody.